Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
Today I'm going to be speaking with Anthony Freda. He is an internationally recognized political artist and illustrator. His work has been featured in Time Magazine, The New Yorker, The New York Times, and now he can add another win to his long list of accomplishments. Freda's piece, Questions, was recently acquired by the National September 11th Memorial and Museum. His piece is the only artifact in the entire collection there that actually questions the official narrative of 9/11. So Anthony, welcome back to the show. It's great to have you. So how did you do it? How did you convince the curators of the 9/11 Museum to acquire this artwork when the whole museum is clearly a shrine to the official narrative?
Well, it's great to be here, Leanne, and thank you for the opportunity to explain the story. It's kind of a crazy story. I approached the museum because I just had this idea that the whole thing is a shrine to the official story, and I approached them saying, you can't have a 9/11 museum without the truth movement being represented in some way. I mean, it's millions of people. It's a huge, movement. You can't just ignore, the multitude of issues and evidence and serious people who are questioning the official narrative, and it needs to be represented in some way. So I approached them with an email, fully expecting that they would just say thank you, but no thank you, or completely ignore me. And to my shock, but delight, they agreed with me, and they sent me back an email saying, we'd like to put your piece into the selection process, and went through a series of internal committees, and it has been acquired to be part of the permanent collection. It will be the first and only piece in the collection that questions the official narrative. So it's kind of a big deal from, their perspective and from the truth movement's perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we have the video that you provided where you're actually speaking there with the curators of the museum, explaining your piece to us. So how did you go about explaining that to them?
Well, that was kind of surreal. I mean, I'm in the 9/11 museum talking 9/11 truth to people who are, their job is to create this monument to the official narrative. So there's this built-in irony to it, and this discrepancy that I still can't figure out. I don't know why they let me in there, but maybe they didn't know who they're dealing with. I don't know. But we'll see. We'll see what they do with it. Everybody says they're going to hide it or shelve it. Like you remember in, Raiders of the Lost Ark, they had a giant warehouse where they put everything. Or they're, put it in the urinal or something. I don't know. But
yeah, that was kind of my question, is where exactly are they going to be displaying this piece so that people can come into the museum? Obviously, some of the family members or some people, I mean, do you think that they're afraid people might be offended by it, or did they seem to agree with the piece, or what was their response?
They thought they were grateful to have it. They said this is a unique acquisition, and they said this is they're taking like a tiny, putting a toe in the water into the truth movement, because I think they realize that you can't just completely ignore it, act like it's not, a phenomenon. It's a global phenomenon. There's millions of people who are questioning these things. So it's not just they can't just, allocate it to some tiny little fringe group. So they did, to their credit, acknowledge that we got to represent it some way. So I think the fact that this piece was published in the Village Voice, and it had some sort of, journalistic, historical tie-in to the event, that they thought it might be an appropriate way to kind of just test the waters a little bit. So, I mean, I'm trying to get inside their head. I don't know. I asked them straight out, you can have a 9/11 truth section. They said, no, there'll be no truth section. But they're happy to have this piece. So it's all, I didn't really get a straight answer for them exactly how they're going to display it, to answer your question.
Yeah, and I know you said in the original letter that you sent to the museum, you said asking questions is a fundamental American tradition that has sadly been on the wane of late, to all of our detriment. You go on to discuss a lot of the false pretexts that brought us into the war, and sort of tying that into this piece, and basically saying dissent is the highest form of patriotism, especially in a time of universal deceit, and it's the duty of the artist to go where conscience takes him without regard to political correctness. So obviously that's very powerful. Do you think that that kind of you challenging them was something that prompted them to take on this challenge of bringing in a dissenting voice?
I think I might have swayed them because I was obviously passionate about these issues, but at the same time not too snarky or disrespectful. I understand what position they're coming from. You got a museum. George Bush is on the board of this museum. I mean, this is the official shrine, as we say, to this story. So, and it's the biggest story of this century. So. It needs to have all voices represented, I think, because it's impacted so many lives. And I tried to go about, if you watch the video, Behind Truth Art, it's a film by John Masseria, documenting the process, you'll see that I tried to be respectful and humble. I mean, I'm in their museum. They invited me there. And that was surreal about it, talking about 9/11 truth in the museum and laying out the case, through my artwork, being able to explain it, these things that I learned from friends of mine, like my friend Dan Zollinger introduced me to you guys originally, and it's been a long journey ever since.
Yeah, and you mentioned Bush being on the board. He's actually featured within questions within the piece, as well as JFK. You talked to the curators there about some of the symbolism within this piece. Including the JFK, and then you get into Operation Northwoods. You're basically taking them into the history of Black Ops operations there. I mean, that's very surreal. What was their response to the way that you were portraying Bush and others?
Well, it was a great opportunity to talk about these issues in their hallowed halls and do it in a way, like I say, that was respectful and I hope, convincing to them. But at the end of the day, they did say to me, we love that you are expressing these ideas. We don't agree with any of them, but we're happy to have this piece of museum. So they're still hardliners as far as, the 9/11 Commission report. When you go in that museum, it's on every desk. It's like their Bible. And you feel like you're in this temple to the, to the official story. So, and that's what it is. That's what was constructed, to literally etch that into stone. And I actually said to them at one point, before we etch this into stone, the story into stone, let's find out what happened. We don't know what happened. And so I think I made some inroads into, maybe softening their position a little bit, but it's a very difficult, audience to try to convince. I mean, these people are hardcore establishment people, and they were very nice to me and they were very gracious, but that's a tough nut to crack.
Right, exactly. So they didn't agree with you that there are some unanswered questions. It kind of reminds me of that piece that's right behind you there with the drilling down, drilling down the idea and the official narrative into people. It is very hard to break through that paradigm, and obviously art is a very powerful way to do that and start letting people know it's okay to ask questions about the official story. And your piece is just really powerful. It ties in a lot of those unanswered questions. What do you think about the memorial itself? I know you emailed me your thoughts on the official design of the memorial.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about that. It wasn't until I actually went there, and you've been there, when you experience it, it's a visceral experience. I mean, it's a very dark monument. And Michael Arad, he's an Israeli who designed this, and it was a clever design using the footprint, to turn into these fountains that kind of go into this abyss. But the overall effect that he said he was trying to achieve was one of to show the feelings of loss and absence and death and destruction caused by 9/11. And it's very transparent, and he's very successful in my opinion, in conveying these feelings of death and destruction, because it's a dark monument. You stare into that abyss, it doesn't reflect any light, and it seems like just this flow into like a hole into hell or something. I don't know. Right. It's a black hole. It's a black hole that everything is flowing into, and in some ways it reminds me of the giant drain just sucking down liberty and freedom and hope, and it's a very dark monument. And the fact that you're looking down into a hole, into a metaphor for a grave, which I'm sure is what he was thinking. It's a dark monument, and I think sadly it's a fitting monument to the legacy of 9/11.
Right. It is very sad. I mean, just being there, it really draws out sad and sort of dark emotions, which, when you want to be reflective of what happened there, the tragedy, obviously that is, it is all encompassing. That feeling is definitely, you cannot escape that feeling when you're there at the memorial. But of course, that's also to control people into just having that sadness to not be able to question the official story, because you might disrespect all of these people whose lives were lost. Actually, they have the unidentified human remains are actually there at World Trade Center 1. They're interred at the bottom of the North Tower footprint. So, I mean, that's dark.
I know it's very dark. But I think what disrespects the families and the victims of this horrible tragedy is not giving them the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Answering the questions, from architects and engineers on 9/11 truth, and not answering. They Building 7's not even in the museum. There's nothing about it.
Right.
So, conveniently, we're not going to talk about that because it makes no sense that this 50-story building falls perfectly into this footprint from a small fire. It's never happened. The fire was out. Richard Gage explains it. Can't possibly happen according to the laws of physics on planet Earth. There's 80 columns that had no resistance and just magically vanished so this thing could fall at free fall speed. We're talking about physics here. You could have all kinds of theories, but you can't argue Newtonian physics on planet Earth. There's only one way they work. And the way they work that day is at odds with Newton. So that museum has a problem with Isaac Newton, okay? And, and like I say, this is the ultimate disrespect to the whole world, to America, to Americans, to the victims, to their families, not telling them the truth, not giving them a satisfactory investigation.
Right.
To me, that's the ultimate disrespect, not questioning this ridiculous report as if it's some, Bible handed down from God. It's not. They wanted Henry Kissinger to lead that report originally. Remember that?
Oh, goodness.
That was their first choice. So that shows you really think it was an effort to get to the truth, to put Henry Kissinger, known war criminal and liar, guy who gave us carpet bombing in Cambodia and, 3 million dead in Indochina and 60,000 American guys dead for nothing. This is the guy you put in charge. This is the guy, he comes in as a fixer. He comes in and, cleans up the mess and makes the lies palpable to the masses.
Right, exactly. And, a lot of those people involved definitely want to do that. Now, talk to me a little bit about the documentary.
It's called Behind Truth Art.
Yeah.
And yes, it's a documentary by John Masseria. And he's going around interviewing a lot of different activists. We've interviewed Gerald Celente and Richard Gage and a lot of other guys in the truth movement and people who are political activists and kind of alt media personalities, and trying to see, get to their personal stories, like what's the sacrifices they've made. Anybody who's in 9/11 truth movement has made sacrifices, on a personal level and professional level, because it's an unpopular position to take, and it takes a toll on you emotionally, with your family, with your friends, and professionally, and so it's an interesting story. And I don't think it's been adequately told, and I hope this movie, gets to the heart of something that I know John wants to get to the heart of, the real human stories here, and the people that make these sacrifices. When people make sacrifices like the thousands of architects and engineers, you got to listen to these guys. They're not getting paid to do this. As a matter of fact, they're making a great sacrifice and they're putting their reputation and their career on the line to give you this information. These are very serious people. You have to listen to them. You have to hear them out. And when you do, you have to be convinced, because they have nothing to gain and everything to lose by giving this information. And they're doing it because, for one reason, they're men of conscience and women of conscience, and they're people who are honest people and have the integrity to say, I don't care. Like you said, I don't care where the chips fall, where they may. This is the truth.
Absolutely. I think that's why we had our interview with Rudy Dent, the firefighter that was there, saw World Trade Center 7 come down. That video has already gotten over 500,000 hits. It was so powerful because people were, here is someone, just like you say, he's got nothing to gain. He wasn't paid for that interview. He's not selling a book or anything like that. He just wants people to know what he saw. So it's, it's now 13 years later. It's time for people to have the freedom to be able to ask questions unanswered these unanswered questions that just don't make sense, and to not be ostracized or made to feel like they're being disrespectful to all of those people who lost their lives that day.
That's right. And these questions need to be answered. And there's some great people, brave people doing it. There's 9/11 Truth Movement on Facebook. I think they do a great job. If people want to get information, real and factual information about what happened that day, there's architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth. There's so many people out there, you know, and they're just trying to find out what happened. And like you say, that is, to me, the core of, you know, being an independent, free-thinking person is, and as every American has the right to ask these questions. So let's move forward, and let's hope, you know, the other thing that's interesting to me is a lot more people are open to these ideas than they were just 5 years ago. You know, I have people that have seen that video that 5, 10 years ago, they would have said that was nuts. They probably never would have talked to me again. And now they're more open-minded because now they know, you know, did the government lie to us about Iraq? Did they lie to us about spying on all of us? Yeah, they lied to us about a lot of things. So people are starting to look around, even the most mainstream people, and say, well, yeah, they lied to us about all these serious things, wars and, you know, spying and destroying our civil liberties. And so what else are they lying about?
Right. Yeah, well, thank you, because I know that you were a witness to the events of 9/11. You said that that day changed your life and the focus of your art forever. And so hopefully this piece being in the 9/11 museum will help to break through that whole official narrative, break through the paradigm, and crack open some minds. So thank you so much for joining us here today again, Anthony, and we look forward to speaking with you soon.
Thanks, Leanne. And when people go to the museum, ask to see the piece.
Yes.
Don't let them hide it. Just go there and say, I want to see the Anthony Freda piece, because this is our little foot in the door to the truth movement and to get the truth out there and expose the lies of 9/11.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Leanne.
So absolutely, demand to see that piece there at the 9/11 museum. Make sure they don't have it shoved in some dark corner somewhere. Let's put that out in the forefront. Let them know that that's what we're really curious about. That's what we want to see there at the 9/11 museum. Well, thank you for tuning in to the show tonight. If you're watching us on YouTube, please become a subscriber to the Alex Jones channel, and then head over to prisonplanet.tv and become a subscriber. You can now share your username and password with up to 20 people at the same time. That is 20 people getting instant access to over 18 years worth of content. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you here tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central.
Celebrate the spirit of freedom and liberty upon which our nation was founded at InfoWarsShop.com. Molon Lave is ancient Greek for come and take it. This popular design combines both classic Greek Spartan imagery with modern M16 assault rifles. Now available in women's tees and proudly made in the USA. Celebrate the spirit of 1776 with the George Washington brass belt buckle, or this incredibly sharp-looking 1776 hat. Badass. And be sure to check out the new arrivals at Infowars Life, where you can prepare your body to perform at peak levels with Survival Shield, Nascent Iodine, Super Male Vitality, and Fluoride Shield. And wake up, America. Immune Support Blend is the healthy choice for the gourmet coffee lover. So get incredibly high-quality, freedom-based products and help fund the revolution at InfoWarsShop.com.
You are watching the Infowars Nightly News, which airs 7 p.m. Central at InfoWarsNews.com. Members can share their passcodes with up to 11 other people, and your support is helping us defend liberty worldwide.